Marco Rubio just walked into a room full of the world's most powerful diplomats and said the one thing every Republican in America has been waiting to hear for years. And the left is absolutely furious. Let's set the scene. It's 2025. Marco Rubio has just been confirmed as the 72nd Secretary of State of the United States, the first Latino ever to hold that office. And from day one, he came out swinging. In meetings with NATO allies, in press conferences, in closed-door briefings that have been leaking to the press all week. Rubio has been delivering a message that is crystal clear. America is back. America is strong. And America is done being the world's piggy bank. He looked foreign ministers in the eye and told them what decades of career diplomats were too polite, too cautious, or too captured by globalist ideology to say. That if you want American protection, American resources, and American partnership, then you need to actually show up. You need to contribute. You need to earn it. This wasn't diplomatic language. This was straight talk. The kind of straight talk that career State Department bureaucrats have been allergic to for 40 years. And conservatives across this country heard it, and they finally felt seen. Now, to understand why this moment matters so much, you have to understand what came before it. For the last 4 years, America's foreign policy was run by people who seemed to believe that apologizing for America was a strategy. We had an administration that handed billions of dollars to countries that hate us, that rejoined international organizations that were actively working against American interests, that signaled weakness to our adversaries while lecturing our allies about climate change and gender studies. Meanwhile, China was building a military. Iran was advancing its nuclear program. Venezuela was becoming a narco state that was exporting criminals to American cities. And what did the globalist establishment do? They wrote more strongly worded letters and held more international conferences. Rubio knows all of this. He spent years on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee watching it happen in real time. He saw how weakness invites aggression. He saw how appeasement emboldens dictators. And now he's in a position to actually do something about it. The man didn't come to Washington to make friends with foreign bureaucrats. He came to put America first. So what specifically did Rubio say that has everyone talking? In his confirmation hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the same committee he used to sit on, Rubio made a series of statements that had conservatives standing up and cheering. He said, and I'm quoting here, that American foreign policy must serve American national interests, not the interests of the United Nations, not the interests of globalist NGOs, not the interests of foreign governments who have captured our bureaucracy, American interests. He talked about China in a way that no Secretary of State has dared to in modern memory, calling it the most significant geopolitical threat America has ever faced. He called out Iran for financing terrorism across the Middle East. He called out Venezuela for being a failed narco state that is destabilizing an entire continent. And then he said something that every Republican who has been fighting these battles for decades has been waiting to hear from America's top diplomat. That the era of America subsidizing the defense of wealthy nations who refuse to pull their own weight is over. He specifically called out countries that spend our money on social programs while expecting American taxpayers to foot the bill for their security. The room went quiet. The diplomats were not used to hearing this, but American voters heard it and they roared. Now, of course, the left lost their minds. The legacy media, the same outlets that have been wrong about everything for the last decade, immediately declared that Rubio was dangerous, that his rhetoric was destabilizing, that he was going to start a war by being too aggressive. Democratic senators on the Foreign Relations Committee tried to rattle him. They brought up his past statements, his past positions, tried to find contradictions. Rubio answered them point by point, calmly, confidently, with the kind of intellectual command that comes from actually studying these issues for decades instead of just reading Twitter. The mainstream media called his tone alarming. The globalist think tank said he was threatening diplomatic norms. former ambassadors who presided over some of the biggest foreign policy disasters in American history: the Iraq surge mismanagement, the Libya catastrophe, the Afghanistan withdrawal, suddenly found their voices to tell us that Marco Rubio was the problem. And here's what's beautiful about it. Rubio didn't back down. He didn't soften his tone. He didn't put out a clarifying statement. He doubled down. Because he knows what real Americans know. The time for diplomatic theater is over. The world needs to understand that the America of the last 4 years is gone. But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here, because this moment is about more than one speech or one confirmation hearing. What Marco Rubio represents is a complete philosophical revolution in American foreign policy. For decades, the bipartisan foreign policy establishment told us that America had to play by a certain set of rules, that we had to be patient with bad actors, that we had to engage even with those who were openly hostile to us. That diplomacy meant being agreeable even when the other side was taking advantage of us. We paid for it with American blood and American treasure. We paid for it with the loss of American manufacturing to China, the spread of fentanyl from cartels we refused to confront, and the emboldening of Iran, Russia, and a dozen other bad actors who read our restraint as weakness. Rubio's approach says, enough. America is the most powerful nation in the history of the world. We have a right, a responsibility to use that power in service of our own people first, not in service of global institutions that don't share our values, not in service of foreign governments that smile at the cameras and stab us in the back. This is what America First foreign policy actually looks like when implemented by someone who has spent his entire adult life studying how the world actually works. It looks like strength. It looks like clarity. It looks like honesty. And honestly, it's long overdue. Here's the bottom line. Marco Rubio is not just the Secretary of State. He is the clearest articulation of what America First foreign policy looks like in 2025. He is proof that you can be tough without being reckless, honest without being rude, and strong without being a bully. Every Republican who has been watching the globalists run circles around American diplomacy for 40 years just got a Secretary of State who actually speaks their language. And every American who believes that this nation has a right to put its own people first just got a diplomat who agrees with them. If you want more coverage of the stories the mainstream media refuses to tell you, subscribe to America First Daily right now. Hit that bell so you never miss a video. Because the fight for America is just getting started, and we are here every single day, covering it for you.